It's going to be wild. Anyone who thinks that the hype is over and that the whole thing is over is disillusioned. We've definitely gone through this first phase where you have all the hype, all the news, everyone's talking about AI. And there's even this sense right now that we've sort of popped the hype bubble. But over time, as everything sort of winds down a little bit, we start to enter what is my favorite phase, which is the building phase. So the only professionals that get hurt during the AI turbulence are the professionals that actually exit the plane. Because eventually that plane's going to land and it's going to be an amazing, efficient new world. As everything develops, we're right there. We're a part of it. We are the reason why it develops, is because we're demanding the improvement, the development, the deployment from Salesforce, from the language models, and that demand generates the execution.
Welcome to Salesforce Radio, your destination for insights, news, and community connections within the dynamic Salesforce ecosystem.
Mark, good morning and welcome to Salesforce Radio. Really excited to have you on as a guest.
Yeah, Ben, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So we're here with Mark Good. He's the founder of AI Force Training, a really fascinating, I would say, cutting edge organization that's helping prepare Salesforce professionals for the current or upcoming AI revolution. And maybe we'll get into that and figure out where exactly we stand at this moment in the game, because, to be completely honest, to me, it's not really clear right now where we're at. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, for sure. No, a lot of people are feeling the same way. And there's even this sense right now that we've sort of popped the hype bubble, which I anticipated coming. Actually, I forecasted it back in at Dreamforce last year. It was a little too early, unfortunately. But yeah, we've definitely gone through this first phase where you have all the hype, all the news, everyone's talking about AI. And that's because the technology was put on display by ChatGPT. But over time, as everything sort of winds down a little bit, we start to enter what is my favorite phase, which is the building phase. So now that everybody's aware of the technology, they're aware of the importance of it, all eyes are on it, all companies are looking at it, all CTOs are looking at it. There are specialists being placed into organizations or trained up inside organizations to be responsible for this rollout of AI. Now we're in the building phase. And I've seen this personally as well at AI Force Training. I'm getting more questions about implementation and how-tos now versus like, what is AI and how do I learn about it? And so we're sort of crossing over. We're doing more work on actual implementations now. Everyone at the beginning thought that AI was going to be this sort of black box where you just plug it in to whatever your things are. So like Salesforce, you just plug it into Salesforce and now it's doing all of these things for us. But the reality is that the way the tech works, it doesn't just gobble up all the tasks. There are things behind the scenes that AI is good at, and there are things that it's not good at. So you have to plug it in the right place. And since it's not just to flip the switch, turn it on and use it, now, if you're going to plug it in the right places, you have to ask yourself a bunch of questions like, well, where does it belong? And how do I plug it in? And how do I use it effectively? And what's the user experience? Is it customer facing? Is it just internal facing? And there's all these questions you have to answer to go throughout this build out phase. And so you see this in the companies that are promoting AI products. You see it with Salesforce themselves. Very seemingly, I would say, slow relative to what the hype's been described as what AI is going to do. Relatively slow rollout. And that's because it's hard. It's hard to take an imperfect thing and plug it into your processes and then use it. And it's tough. And it takes a lot of professionals, a lot of time to dig through and make that happen.
That's a great introduction. And I'm happy that you're setting the scene a little bit for the conversation. Before we got started, I was thinking someone who is involved in this on a day-to-day basis. You've been, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of interested in AI since soon after that you started with Salesforce around 2015. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's been a while. I used to read all the I still do, but that was at the time, that was the only thing that I would do regarding AIs, digging into the white papers and learning what these neural nets can achieve and what they can accomplish. And then sort of relating that back to the real world, like how do we use this someday? So yeah, it's been a side-by-side passion, Salesforce plus AI. So that's why we have AI Force Training now. It's taking what AI has grown up to be, teaching that to Salesforce professionals and having them go out and deploy AI solutions for themselves inside their own orgs. And then now that Salesforce has their own AI products on the Einstein 1 platform, it's transitioning to also teaching what you can do natively with Salesforce with Einstein 1, with Copilot, with Prompt Builder and Model Builder and the other tools that they have coming down the pipeline. So the passion of AI was like right on point. I'm really happy that was one of the things of many things that I dove into years ago, but I'm glad that was one of the things that I stuck with and followed along with, because I think I couldn't have forecasted how large this segment of work was going to be, or this segment of technology was going to be. I'm just happy that I stuck with it for that long. And then also had the foresight to take a moment and breathe and say, okay, well, how is this actually going to be applied? Sort of forecast that and then start working with it. Start AI Force training, start training professionals on it. And it's just been so fun to be a part of the hype cycle. That's always great. But even after sort of being in this period of, okay, well, now we're going to build. And this is the fun part. Like everyone's racking their head. Okay, how exactly am I going to use it? Is this going to be, am I rolling out ChatGPT Enterprise for my organization? Are we building a custom GPT with ChatGPT? Are we looking at Claude because it has a larger context window? Wait, should we hold up for Gemini? Like we have a lot of decisions to make. Do we just wait on Salesforce to roll out Einstein 1 before we dig in? Like, what do we do? And so it's really fun to have all these conversations with everyone and help talk them through the logic and the logistics and, how are they going to use AI inside their organization and use it in the most effective way without consuming so much resources, because there's a lot of noise. And so boiling that down, distilling down, that's been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And one of the things that I think when ChatGPT kind of made its big splash onto the scene, and, all of a sudden I'd see people like, with their friends and they're sitting with their phones and like, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're clearly on ChatGPT right now doing something, whether it was trying to get poetry written by some great master of philosophy 300 years ago. And it was interesting to just see how people were using it for some, kind of entertainment as a novelty. And as someone who, I wouldn't say I've used ChatGPT a lot, I haven't used different AI tools extensively by any means. But one of the things that I noticed right away, and I think this is one of the things that you also, from my understanding, have, focused on with your training, is the ability to work with the AI and the ability to really be able to refine what's going on there. So, if I'm trying to brainstorm about something, and I'm someone who always, I do much better when I'm in a group of people, right? Especially when it comes to creativity. If I'm sitting alone, it's hard to be creative. If I have one or two people to bounce ideas off of, it becomes much easier and the door opens to a lot more opportunities. So when I've gone and sat and tried to bounce ideas off of ChatGPT, and I'm sitting there, I'm going, okay, well, let's start like this. Okay, now refine this part. Now do this. And then we start to see how we can work with these large language models and start to work together to come and bring about some sort of, solution to whatever the problem is that we're looking to solve, whether it's something creative, whether it's something, having to do with logic. And in your training, from what I've seen, just in some of the videos I've watched, it seems like a lot of what you're doing is teaching people how to use ChatGPT as like their personal assistant rather than, their fortune teller, let's say.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, we teach that we use AI as an assistant and we use it on a daily basis. And it does exactly what you said. And people rave about it. It speeds up the process of going from I have a problem or I'm looking for a solution. I have a problem, looking for a solution, to actually having the solution done, like having the thing done. Whatever the thing is, if you're using AI, it speeds up the process, and it falls into different, like you mentioned it there at the beginning, brainstorming. So if I'm sitting down and I'm brainstorming, anytime I stop and I pause and I'm thinking about something, there's an opportunity to use AI to help me augment my thoughts and speed it up. So the other day I sat down with a problem and I thought, okay, well, how am I going to solution for this? And I opened up ChatGPT. Of course, it's always open. It's on bookmark for like everything that I do. And then I just described what I was looking for, and it blasts out bullet points, like 5 different bullet points of different ways that I could achieve that. And it's like a shortcut, just shortcuts everything that you're doing. I'm not a developer by far, but I feel like I'm a developer sometimes as I'm writing code to do things, and then I'm testing the code to do the things. And AI is the developer, or, it's like, it's able to just give me just a little bit beyond what my skill set is. I'm able to digest that and build on that. And it's like this weird world where you're solutioning for real world problems while also learning at the same time, while also like you said, it's as if you're operating with a team of people, but you're all alone, which is wild. And I think that alone in itself, like we're just talking ChatGPT at this point, having the ability to chat with a language model and for free, right? I mean, I love that OpenAI has done this and others have done this. You've got the AI model available via chat for free. So this is a free service that you can improve your efficiency as an individual. And I think this is the thing that we're going to see play out over time. This is the AI revolution that we're going to see play out. Individual people are operating at a much smarter level, at a much faster level, and able to do things that they couldn't do before on their own. And they had to get in a group and work collectively. We still get in groups, we still work collectively, but now each of us has this AI model, this AI tool, this assistant to help us perform better. And that's the AI revolution. That's the promise of the AI revolution on an individual level using ChatGPT alone. Now layer on top of that the ability for product builders for platforms like Salesforce to call APIs and use the language model behind the scenes at the right moment with the right data, with the right prompts to request the right responses, to then take the right actions. And now we're talking about agency. And I think that's where we're at right now. That's the boom, sort of the next boom cycle will be driven by agency as these tools get built out and get rolled out. So we have the individual, able to achieve so much more if they're doing it right. And then you've got organizations collectively using tools that are making us capable of achieving so much more with the same resources. And it's going to be wild. I think anyone who thinks that the hype is over and that the whole thing is over is disillusioned. I put out a post the other day on this. It's like, the only professionals that get hurt during the AI turbulence are the professionals that actually exit the plane, right? Because eventually that plane's going to land and it's going to be an amazing, efficient new world. But if you just quit and leave, well, that doesn't help you at all, right? So yeah. Learn AI, learn the tools, learn the skills. We do that at AI Force training. I love it. Pay attention to what's going on in your companies. Join any AI task force at your company. If your company doesn't have one, start one. These are the things I preach.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because I think a lot of the talk, is about, okay, how is AI going to be used, to manipulate us, right? And rather than about how we're going to use it to be more productive to work within these systems. And I think what you're speaking about, kind of this turning point that we're at right now, is really interesting. And I saw the video that you have up on your website where you, in 2.5 minutes, show, kind of just a front end demo of what it could look like to have AI helping you in support, right? And doing that. So maybe can you break that down for us a little bit? And of course we can, make sure to have the video in the, comments here or in the blog post that we do. Would love to hear a little bit about the mechanics behind what I saw there on your website, where you have AI basically working as an assistant for a support person within Salesforce.
Yeah, exactly. This was one of the earliest interesting use cases for me. And so that's why it's in the video on the site. For those who haven't seen the video, go watch the video. It kind of looks like magic. I think it's fun. I have like a little wand and magic in there too, because it looks like magic. But yeah, if you show up, if you're working a case in Salesforce, you're a user, you're working a case in Salesforce, and you show up on the case, and you already have AI assistants who's done something for you on that case. I mean, I think that's incredible already. First off, to say, we're building on that same concept, and we're looking at AI to triage cases. So that's how this stuff sort of compounds and progresses over time. But just the use case on the video on the site, all it is inside Salesforce, you've got email to case. So when a case gets created via an email from a customer with a concern or a problem with, say, a product, AI, you can call AI via a flow. So AI inside of a flow. So if you learn these skills, you can build this. AI inside of a flow. You call AI when the case gets created. AI is taking the case information, only the information that you select, right? Not like your entire org data. So only the information you as a Salesforce professional behind the scenes say, yep, I'm going to send this information to AI. That's it, nothing else. Send your information to AI. You also send with it your prompt. So what do you want AI to do with this information? And you can also send with it source documentation. Where should AI look for the answers to the issue this customer's having? So you get your prompt, customer data, whatever the data is in the case. You've got your source data that AI should look to for answers, just like a human would. I'm thumbing through the manual. Okay, well, how do we answer this? Feed all that grounded context to AI, and then AI responds. And then via the flow, you as the professional in the background set this up. You tell the flow where to put that information. And what we do in the example is we just drop it right on the record. So we update the record with the response from AI. And that's what you see. And I think we did three examples. I think it was like translation. So we just translated the case information. We asked for a suggested resolution. I think it was even like an email. So write a suggested resolution email to this customer. And I forget the third one. So go watch the video so you'll see it. But that's really just the tip of the iceberg. So that's like barely getting started learning AI skills, how to drop it into a flow, knowing when to use it, right? When a case gets created, putting that into your flow. So flow skills are important. But understanding the AI language model, understanding how it works, how it ticks, how do you prompt it? Like, okay, what you've got your frequently asked questions documentation, you've got your problem inside the case, but how do you sort of package that and send it to AI? So how do the prompts get laid out? So once you learn all of that, you can build that. And that's just one simple, straightforward use case that most companies have, right? I mean, triaging customer problems. That's very common. So yeah, it's a really nice use case. And funny enough, everywhere I go, that is one of the use cases that pops up all the time. Well, I have these cases. How do we, what can we do with AI to like help augment our users going in and tackling these cases?
Yeah, I think support is a really interesting place to start with that, especially when you can feed the AI model, whatever you're using there. And I guess in that case, are we using ChatGPT?
Yeah, OpenAI's, not ChatGPT. That's their front-end product. But GPT, the GPT 3.5 Turbo or 4, whichever you prefer.
Right. So we're basically embedding that inside of Salesforce, calling it from a flow. And then what you're saying is we're feeding this language model data from our organization. So like our knowledge base, our FAQs, things like that. And then it's putting that together to work with the information that's in the case. Now, how do you then go and test that and see what the limits of that are? And where do you run into your kind of edge cases where all of a sudden a case comes in the system and then you're questioning, is this correct? Like how can you as an admin and then me, let's say as a support user, someone who's answering the cases within Salesforce, how do we know when it's doing a good job? How do we know when we're not going to end up with a bad answer? And I really got to, start scrutinizing it and myself start to look in it. Where is that kind of, and I almost said trust layer, which I think is what the word that Salesforce was saying a lot, but not trust layer, but where is what will give me the trust to know that, yeah, this information is making sense and it's been kind of tested and there's certain parameters. What do you do to test that?
Well, I'll tell you this, that one of the secrets is at first, when you first show up and you set things up, you assume it's wrong. So your goal as a professional is to keep working it until it gets right and to keep working it until it's right more and more often. And then you work until it's right often enough that you can use it, that users can use it confidently. And then even after that, you have to monitor the responses to make sure that there's no drift in the model over time and that your responses drift and all of a sudden they are wrong again. When you learn how the models work, you can gain a level of confidence as you work through this. When you learn about prompt engineering and how you structure your prompts, how the prompts give you the responses that you get, once you learn and start using and get familiar with that, you'll gain a level of confidence with that. But just to start out, you have to assume it's wrong. You have to assume the responses are going to be wrong. You have to audit them yourself after you get everything set up and working, and you go through iterations, you throw at it, you take cases that are actually in your org, you send it through as tests, you look at the responses, you compare with the source documentation, like, is this an accurate final response or not? And you do that over and over, adjusting your prompts until you're happy with the results. So that there's this sort of testing process that goes into developing and deploying an AI solution. And that's with every single solution. So again, it's slow going, it's building, it takes time and it takes skills. First, you have to learn the skills to build up to the point where you actually do that. But yeah, you nailed it. You have to test. You have to test over and over again. And I think that's why over time, we're going to see the positions just explode. Like, these AI related positions, the focus has shifted away from automations outside of AI. And with the AI tech, now we're learning, well, how do we do? It's funny, there are some automations that we're deploying that only AI can do, but there's some automations where it's like, there are other tools that can do these things, some of these automations, but AI also can do it. And so there's this question mark of, do we continue using the legacy method or do we switch over and use, our particular solution with AI? And in some cases, we've chosen to switch over and use AI. So I think seeing that as a trend too, as well, or seeing that as a topic of question answer and decision making, I think we see positions balloon where there's a responsibility. you've deployed this AI for case triage. Well, now you've got a couple of prompts in your system and you're monitoring those over time, and you want to deploy something else. And as you keep deploying things over and over, you have to have personnel that's knowledgeable and responsible and capable of managing this system. And you're going to see that with Salesforce as well, as they roll out the Einstein 1 platform and the tools inside it, like Copilot. For anyone who's gone and done any of the Copilot training and on Trailhead and actually experienced Copilot and looked at the setup, it's complex. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's for what it does, it's relatively simple. Like, you can achieve a lot with the tool set combined. But to first wrap your head around, how does it all work? How does it all come together? It's actually very complex. And I've been doing this for a long time now. And even just me looking at how they have everything structured, and I'm trying to like dissect it. Okay, well, how do they, if you're in Copilot, what are the limitations of Copilot? And like, what can't you say? And how does Prompt Builder feed into that? And there's actually different, the level of control that Salesforce has on Copilot side versus the Prompt Builder side. There's differences there. So, Copilot's exposed to the end users of the org. Prompt Builder is behind the scenes, meant for professionals to use. So there's different levels of controls. And even just knowing that alone, these things are going to take a lot of time for people to learn and put their arms around. And you're going to have to have teams of people who are responsible for these AI programs, these AI deployments. And so it's exciting though. I mean, it's really intriguing whenever you have something new to learn like this. I just hope everybody digs in as much as they should, because with Salesforce rolling out what they are, with Einstein Copilot just like at the cusp of starting to automate new things for us, and create that new user experience for everyone, and then being the professional behind the scenes to actually manage all of that. I just hope everyone's sort of digging in and as much as they can to learn as much as they can to get back behind the scenes and start doing these things. These are going to be the professionals of the future. Even if it doesn't seem like it, if we start to enter a lull where the hype is dropping down a little bit, it's still the truth. These are going to be the professionals of the future. So yeah, dig in.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And so taking, I guess, one step back and what you've got me thinking about a lot about is this kind of prompt builder idea, and that, thinking about myself as a novice kind of AI user in ChatGPT, refining things over and over. I'm thinking about kind of that interaction of the prompt builder, and I'm, I'd like to learn more about that at some point. But taking one step back, tell us about maybe when was the first time that you were able to combine the power of AI, whatever that was at the time, or maybe still is, with Salesforce. What were like some of the first things that you did to try to fuse the two together?
Yeah, that what you see on the website with the video, that use case, that case triage. I mean, that's really close to sort of the first elements of it. Was within a flow. If I'm remembering right, yeah, it was within a flow. I mean, actually inside Salesforce, the flow was the first place where it got used. And, at first it was just like, well, how do we like get AI in the flow? That was the big first question. And so, working that through, and then, okay, well, now that we have it there and we have it like sort of turned on and enabled, what do we do with it? What can we even do with this? And so it's just really exploration. And in the beginning, it's funny, it's really hard in the beginning because, there is nothing's laid out. Salesforce doesn't have Copilot. They haven't even announced, that they're going to use AI inside the org yet. So you're just really staring at a blank page, wondering how is this going to be used? Like, really, when it comes down to it, how are we really going to be using this thing? Because it's a really cool tech, and using ChatGPT is really cool. Any of those like text generation, back in the day, text generation tools are really cool. But like, how do we really use a text generation tool to like do things, like actually do things? And so, there was just a lot of like hanging out, having fun, just like research and trial and error, mostly error, some trial. It's really, and we're still there though. That's the funny thing, is we're still in that moment somehow. It's like we're able to deploy AI, and there are specific use cases, but the page is still a little bit blank on exactly how does this all come together to create that sort of like really autonomous bot. Like, my vision is when I come to the Salesforce org as a professional, I want it to present to me. This AI tool presents to me, here are the projects we're working on. Like, here's where we're at on these things. I just worked overnight for you. I haven't seen you in 12 hours. Mark, good. Welcome back. Hey, thanks. And then it tells me like, hey, we just reviewed this code behind the scene. We reviewed your setup. We noticed you have a couple new users, these profiles, whatever the things are. It's looking at all the metadata behind the scene and presenting to me areas where we could improve the org, and then asking me, Like, what do we want? What should we work on? And I get to prioritize and send the AI off into doing the things that it's supposed to do. And the question really is still like, how do we get all of that to come together? And I'm sure Salesforce is working on it behind the scenes, but also in the interim, they've got to have their team working on and deploying these actually, interim, these tools that go out and do these different things. And I think at the end of the day, what will end up eventually happening is users have Copilot behind the scenes is powered by Flows, Apex, and Prompt Builder, which is AI, like pulling in the AI. They already have the different language models. So it's going to be almost like building out all of these various actions that need to take place: standard actions, custom actions, flow actions, Apex actions. And this is going to be the tool set that eventually an AI planner will have available to it to use. And I want to teach everyone how to be responsible for that AI planner and know how to give it all these tools and be responsible for all of these tools. So that's the direction we're headed. That's at least how I see it playing out.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And obviously I haven't completely wrapped my head around it. I don't think anyone has, 100%, because we don't even know exactly what we're interfacing with when we think about the future of AI and something like Salesforce. And right now the conversation has really just been, about Salesforce and about kind of the way that we're using it there. And obviously there's going to be similar kind of applications that are going to find ways to do it. Obviously Salesforce has really, announced kind of a big push for AI, and that's been a big buzz in the ecosystem, I'd say probably for the last year, a little bit more at this point. So it's definitely fascinating to me. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking about kind of the different roles and how they can be impacted by AI within Salesforce. And we spoke about support a little bit. I myself am in sales, and I've been selling for a number of years, using Salesforce for years. And Salesforce has always talked about kind of the 360 view for the salesperson or for the support person, where they get this kind of understanding of who the customer is and what they want or what they might need. But that's really just based on the data that you put into it. And once you have AI kind of enriching, I would say, the data a little bit through the different steps, right? Like the thing we were talking about before with the case, and you were kind of speaking about how it's going to, we have to observe whether things are fluctuating or if things are getting, kind of warped. The perception of the case and the answers are changing over time because the language model is evolving. How do you think that's going to inform us about, the customers in Salesforce? And let's say we're working with a customer for a number of years, and a lot of our relationships going to be based on these AI predictions and things like that. What's that going to do in terms of our perception of the customer and how we're going to interface with them?
That's a really interesting question. I think if you deploy AI correctly and over time, like you say, the customer profile is being built out by sort of AI processes. I think the only conclusion I have is that it creates a much more robust experience for your customers. Mm-hmm. When you know so much more about them, when you have their data at your fingertips and it's the relevant data, it's the right data. And of course, at that point, we're using AI as the tool, as the intermediary to, have the correspondence with the customer via whatever medium, text, email, whatever. I just think that it can only help you to know more about your customer, to have a better vision of who they are, what they care about, and especially making it more real time. So in the moment, and then also making it relevant to the moment, whatever's happening in the world at the time where you're working with your customer and trying to help them solution for their needs and providing a product or service that makes sense for them. Being in the right place at the right time with the right information. I mean, I think that can only help. And I think that's why Salesforce wins this AI CRM game, at least in the short term, because like you said, 360 approach, customer data, they've done data cloud, right? All the pieces are in place to get AI in position to be using the right data at the right time for the right experience. So I think if anything, it just improves your ability to service and help your customers, which also speaks to how important it is as a company to have a person or teams in place looking at AI, figuring out how you're going to deploy it, how it's going to impact your products and services. If there are going to be AI facing or customer facing AI elements to your product or service, how are you going to deploy those? How are you going to use AI behind the scenes within your business process? Who's going to be responsible for that? Who's going to deploy that? skilling up your talent to make sure that your talent can actually deliver on these expectations. It's becoming extremely important for companies to do that, to lean in and focus on that. Going back to that plane analogy earlier, same thing with individuals jumping out of the plane. If the company jumps out of the plane, you're only going to be hurt later. If others have really great data on their customers and are using AI to interface and just make a much better experience for customers, well, they're going to win out and you're not. So yeah, everyone needs to be planning aggressively and leaning in aggressively to AI from a business perspective right now too. And the good news is that a lot of companies are. There's been a lot of hype. A lot of the news around the benefits of using AI is out there. So it's visible. It's for everyone to see. And there's from the perspective of like language model developers, OpenAI, Google, and beyond, there's definitely a talent war going on, and they're trying to, make sure that they have the talent that they need to be successful to deliver these AI models effectively and with the right tool sets to customers like Salesforce and trickling down to us as customers of Salesforce. And so, eventually that makes its way down to our marketplace where professionals with AI skill sets are the highest paid professionals, and you want to be that professional. You do. You want to be, like I said earlier, when AI is at the point where you've got an AI planner with all of these Copilot capable actions, with all of these prompt builder enabled actions, you want to be responsible for the planner to execute whatever needs to be done in the org, just like you do today, except you're not having to do as much work, which is nice.
Right. So continuing with this idea of getting or being a more informed, employee of a company who's servicing other companies and clients, et cetera. It sounds like there's two aspects here, right? There's the part of the AI that you're going to be building internally to be, looking at the data that you have in Salesforce, let's say, and putting that into ways or packaging that for you as a Salesforce user to be able to use that data. But one of the things that I think is obvious, right, is that you're also going to want AI to be learning about the company from outside of your Salesforce work in some way or another, right? To be able to inform the user about what's going on with that company, maybe telling you, hey, it's time for you to do X, Y, and Z, or to look into how, this acquisition at this customer of yours is going to impact X, Y, and Z with the business that you do with them. But now this is two different things, right? This is AI within Salesforce, and this is AI kind of outside of Salesforce. Have you thought about, or have you seen how these two faces of AI kind of are going to, interface with each other within a secure organization? Like how we merge that data and be able to learn about the customer for things that aren't inside of our org to allow us to work better with them in the future?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a really broad, AI is interesting in that it really is just a language model sitting out there waiting for your prompt and waiting to give you a response. So it's, that's really it, and once you take it and you start using it to do different things, now you say AI, but your AI is updating a record, or your AI is doing this or that. It gets really complex to really hone in on exactly what is going on. And so if we bring it back down to really just the root of it, AI being that model, that language model that's hanging out there, waiting for you to give it a prompt and excited to give you that response, it operates inside the org and outside the org in the exact same way. There's no difference. And so I don't really see a world where there's like AI outside the org and inside the org working together to achieve some common goal. It's more like we're going to direct this tool set to do certain things that our customers find valuable so that we can get paid for them.
Right.
And how are we going to orchestrate and conduct all that? So with that said, you can focus internal inside the org, you can focus external outside the org, and you can focus on both and in some way connect information and data to do, something from an AI perspective. I mean, like have some orchestration that creates some experience for your customers. You can do whatever you want, really, is the bottom line. And it's just the question of like, how are you going to do it? And how valuable is it? How much time and energy, resources should you put into it to make that all come to life? And I think if you flash forward like 20 years from now, who knows? Like, I have no idea how all of this is going to come together because the prediction is very challenging. But in the short term, I think the focus for a long time, in my opinion, is going to be inside the org. We have all this data. What do we do for our customers currently? What new can we do for them that we haven't been doing before? What have we been doing before that we can just do better with AI? How can we augment it? That's going to be a big focus. Yeah, but there is all this external data about events of the world, which you can take and use inside your org even. So you can digest that and use it inside your prompts in some way. You can make calls to the outside world, to the outside services. There's all kinds of orchestration that you can achieve. And it's really it just comes down to, what are you looking to do? And what do you want to deliver? And how do you put it together? And how do you what are the resources to do that? And I think Salesforce with Copilot Builder, they're taking the right steps to empower everyone to know, or to start learning and know how to do that. At AI Force Training, we're also empowering you even beyond that. It's like, well, what are all the custom things that you can actually achieve? What are the tool sets that you can put in place to do that outside of Copilot even? So yeah, it's an interesting, you can architect whatever you want. Where do we want to go? Where are we going to go? I wonder. Where are we going to end up with all this?
Yeah, I think one of the funny things that I've experienced, just in my position right now is people are coming, assuming that because of what's taken place over the last, I don't know if it's 12 or 16 months or 18 months in terms of the AI kind of revolution beginning, let's call it, within the business world. People are coming to me like with their kind of wish lists, saying, we're pretty much positive that, this, let's say OCR solution exists, right? That we could just feed, so at Titan, we're providing solutions for forms, for document generation, for interacting with someone usually who's outside of Salesforce, and figuring out ways to get the data oftentimes in Salesforce, and also allowing the data in Salesforce to be represented in a friendly way to your customer, to your volunteer, to your partner, in an interface outside of Salesforce, allowing them to make updates, changes to really interact with Salesforce, but from a safe and secure perspective where they're not an internal user. And so people are coming now and saying, hey, we want to be able to upload, because we have an OCR solution, and they'll find that online. We want to be able to upload, any type of driver's license, any type of file, and then have it, put into Salesforce magically. And we're still at the point where, no, you're going to need to go in there. You're going to need to map it out, right? So we could take one state's driver's license, and you could say, I want, the address, which looks like this, to go to this field in Salesforce. And that's very much possible, but people are kind of already at this place where they're ready to go, right? They want to just have things be, scanned or viewed and put into Salesforce, or everything's going to be 50 times more responsive than it was last year. And we're obviously just not there yet. But where we are is the ability to start really working on some of these internal processes and begin to automate them, to inform the sellers, inform the service people, help developers do their job. So, it's kind of interesting to see that from the perspective of someone who's, talking to clients of Salesforce all the time and users of Salesforce.
Yeah, exactly. The wish list is growing. And I think all the marketing has done its job, right? It's penetrated the user base, and companies are saying to themselves, I know AI can do this. And funny thing is, they're right. AI can do this, whatever the thing is that they bring to the table for the most part. Right. AI, it can be done and orchestrated using an AI solution. But the challenge is making that come to life, and making it come to life in a structured way that fits into your current setup, whatever in whatever forms that you do have set up. I'm not entirely familiar with everything that you do. I know you've got some AI solutions out there that I looked at in the past, but making that request fit into what you're doing already, so that it doesn't just totally disrupt. It's interesting, and having those sometimes challenging conversations about the time that it takes. And also sometimes I even tell them, I say, look, I haven't seen this solution before, so this is going to be an experiment. Are you okay with that? And funny enough, sometimes it is okay, and it's fun. We just get to explore and see how far we can go with something. But yeah, it takes time. And everyone is feeling like they're just ready to go because the marketing was there and AI's out, and like, we're ready, let's do this. And then you're faced with like, okay, well, where do I click the buy button? Where do I get this tool, and how do I start using it? And then all the questions come up and that need to be answered. It's an interesting time to be alive and watch AI grow. And it's a much more interesting time to be behind the scenes and to be a builder of the tech. Yeah.
So in your day-to-day right now, so we've discussed a little bit, you're training Salesforce professionals, people who are working in Salesforce in what roles? Admin, developer, business analysts, what else? Architects. Yeah. In how to use AI within Salesforce to create new functionality, right?
Exactly.
And so Are they using, so you're training them, and then are they using you also as a consultant to try to implement solutions? And are you implementing solutions for AI in different organizations?
Yeah, exactly. It all starts with training. So looking to train up those professionals that you mentioned. They go out and they start looking at what they can do. Some things they do on their own, some things they have questions about. So I help them, right? Just help them through if it's quick questions. If it's more in depth and involved, we'll start consulting. And then outside of that, it's okay. Well, there are companies who maybe don't have anyone trained on staff and maybe they're not interested just yet. And so they'll reach out to me with questions and we'll just go out and start working with them from a consulting perspective. And then also there are some companies who want a small team trained on how to use AI and how to do these solutions. So we do that as well, do team training. It's just it's a mixed bag of everything right now. There's just a lot of activity going on. So yeah, that's it. It's individual training, team training, consulting. If I had to wrap it up and sum it up in a way, that would be it.
Yeah. And for people listening to this call, or listening to this podcast, who would be an ideal candidate from your perspective to sign up and start doing training with you?
Yeah. Anybody who has any interest in AI, so go on Trailhead first, right? Go on Trailhead, do some of the AI trails and see if you're interested and enjoy learning about this thing. Because first of all, it's not easy. So go ahead and cross that threshold and define whether or not you're interested in it. Because if you're not interested, then just keep doing what you're doing. And eventually the tools will come along and maybe you'll learn like how to use Copilot, and that would be cool. And you'll be able to deploy that for your organization and train end users. But if you do find yourself interested in AI, and find yourself intrigued by the possibilities and capabilities that it unlocks, come do AI Force training. So sign up, go through AI Force training. You're going to learn about AI and the tool sets through the lens of ChatGPT to begin with. And then you're going to transition to learning about the tool sets inside of Salesforce and actually going through and solving for real use, real business case requirements, going through the whole training. So we keep it very hands-on, very specific, and drilled down to Salesforce and Salesforce solutions and solutioning for Salesforce problems with AI using a tool like ChatGPT. That's what gets you over the hump of like learning the model and learning how it works and understanding it. Because by the way, as you transition to using AI behind the scenes inside Salesforce, you've left the ChatGPT world. Now you have to have an understanding of what's going on with that model as you prompt it. So as you go and build out as you go and work inside Prompt Builder inside Salesforce, you have to have those prompt engineering skills. We teach those. The way that Salesforce has laid out their actions with Copilot is sort of like creating those custom actions that Copilot uses. You learn sort of base case. As you learn what we teach with AI inside of a flow, you're also learning how those go together and how that works. So as our professionals transition into using the Salesforce native tools like Copilot, Prompt Builder, Model Builder, they get it. Like they already understand how all these pieces come together. And so that's the benefit of going through and doing actual AI training, even though some tell you might hear out there, right? Like, oh, if you're learning how to use ChatGPT, like why bother? Don't just go use it. I mean, it's not a problem, right? But if you're a professional who's having to use ChatGPT style functionality and put it into your processes, you have to know how to do that. You have to have a much deeper understanding of it.
Fascinating. Yeah, definitely an exciting time. And I guess just to wrap things up, I'd love to hear from you. Obviously, we can't make big predictions about the next 20 years or even the next year, but maybe what do you think that we should look for or look forward to in the next 6 months, taking us to the end of 2024? What are some of the things you think that we should expect or be looking out for as the year goes on?
From an AI perspective, first I'll talk outside the Salesforce space. You're going to see, I think, a significant improvement in the models. Now, 6 months actually isn't that long of a time in the model development world, but we still haven't seen what OpenAI has behind the scenes for GPT. What we're thinking is going to be GPT-5 next. We just saw Google, I say just saw, it's been a minute, I guess, roll out their Gemini with the massive context window that's available via API for developers. So the continued rollout and improvement of current models, private models, open source models like Llama, these are going to be important fundamental developments that occur over the next 6 months. So hopefully we get some cool stuff coming out of that. maybe Sora. I don't know if you've seen the, video editor Sora, or the video generating model Sora. Sure. And others, those are really cool. And so when consumers can actually get their hands on those and start using them, I think you're just going to see, like, we already are seeing an explosion of sort of AI generated content and materials being actually used in marketing and whatnot. You're just going to see more and more of that, right? So if you're a marketing company, like, you've got to be leaning into using these tools. So more continued development of the models, deployment of the models, improved models, multimodal is already out, but maybe more modes of use. Behind the scenes, APIs are improving. So the ability to call these language models and use them, which is what Salesforce does when they're using Copilot, Einstein. So improvement there. And then just really building. So Salesforce is going to continue to methodically build out these capabilities, deploy them into beta mode, get feedback from customers, improve how they work, get, like you mentioned, the trust layer. Like, there's still some work to be done around the trust layer and, monitoring for AI drift. And if they come up with some sort of scheme to help us do that, that would be excellent. Yeah. So these sort of internal tools they'll develop. And then I would say that from a user, maybe like a professional and then a business perspective, next 6 months is going to be all about continuing to dig in, continuing to learn, continuing to build, so that as everything develops, we're right there. We're a part of it. We are the reason why it develops, is because we're demanding the improvement, the development, the deployment from Salesforce, from the language models, and that demand generates the execution. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Thanks a lot, Mark. And I just want to give a quick shout out to our mutual friend, Bradley Rice, who introduced us and said, hey, you should definitely have Mark on the podcast to talk about some of this stuff. And I'm really, really interested in it. And it's been a fascinating conversation. Definitely want to have a check-in at some point, in the future. And for people who are looking to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Oh, yeah. I should have mentioned in the beginning, go to aiforcetraining.com. That's where you can roll in the AI Force training program. Follow me on LinkedIn, Mark Good. You'll see me out there. Also, we have YouTube channel, AI Force Training. And then, but hit me up, like, ask questions. If you have them, I'm happy to answer anything and everything on LinkedIn. So connect with me and then shoot me a request. And I'm happy to help you along your AI journey.
Mark, thanks for joining us on Salesforce Radio. It's really been a pleasure.
Likewise, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Salesforce Radio. Don't forget to subscribe for more exciting discussions, expert tips, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders. Stay connected with Titan, plus the power of the planet's leading CRM. See you next time.